Chapter 11 of the Bird Study Book. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Bird Study Book by T. Gilbert Pearson. Chapter 11 Making Bird Sanctuaries. The best place to study wild birds is on a reservation, for there birds have greatly lost their fear of man, and primitive conditions have been largely restored. In one of the southern sea bird colonies I have photographed royal terns standing unafraid on the sands not 12 feet distant. They had become so accustomed to the warden in charge that they had regained their confidence in man. At Lake Worth I saw a gentleman feed scaup ducks that swam to within 2 yards of his boat. In thousands of dooryards throughout the country, wild birds, won by kind treatment, now take their food or drink within a few feet of their human protectors. The dooryards have become little bird reservations. I have several friends who regularly feed chickadees in winter, perched on their outstretched hands. It is astonishing how quickly wild creatures respond to a reasonable treatment. This may readily be learned by any householder who will try the experiment. With a little patience, any teacher can instruct her pupils in the simple art of making the birds feel at home in the vicinity of the schoolhouse. Natural nesting places destroyed. Some kinds of birds, as far back as we know their history, have built their nests in the holes of trees. Woodpeckers have strong, chisel-shaped bills and are able to excavate nesting cavities, but there are others that do not possess such tools. These must depend on finding the abandoned hole of some woodpecker or the natural hollow of some tree. It not infrequently happens that such birds are obliged to search far and wide for a hole in which they can make their abode. It is customary for those who take care of lawns in city parks to chop away and remove all dead limbs or dead trees. As very few woodpeckers ever attempt to dig a nesting hole in a living tree, such work of the axeman means that when the season comes for the rearing of young, all mated woodpeckers must move on to where more natural conditions await them. This results in an abnormal reduction of the number of holes for the use of the weaker-billed hole nesting species, and they must seek the few available hollows or knot-holes. Even these places are often taken away from them, for along comes the tree doctor who, in his purpose of aiding to preserve the trees, fills up the natural openings with cement, and the birds are literally left out in the cold. It is plainly to be seen, therefore, that one reason why more birds do not remain in our towns through the spring months is the absence of places where they can lay their eggs and rear their young. Nesting boxes for birds. To overcome this difficulty, the Audubon Society several years ago began to advocate the erection of suitable nesting boxes, and today the practice is gaining wide usage. More persons every year are putting such boxes upon poles or nailing them to trees about their homes, and some city authorities include bird boxes in the annual expenditure for the care of public parks. It was not much more than a decade ago that the first serious commercial attempt was made to place bird boxes on the market. Today there are not less than 25 firms engaged in their manufacture. Some of the boxes are very ornate and make beautiful additions even to the most carefully kept estate. One can buy them at prices varying from 35 cents to $35 each. Among the many responsible manufacturers that may be recommended are the Crescent Company, Birdville, Toms River, New Jersey; Pinedale Bird Nesting Box Company, Wareham, Massachusetts; the Audubon Birdhouse Company, Meriden, New Hampshire; Maplewood Biological Laboratory, Stamford, Connecticut; Jacobs Birdhouse Company, 404 South Washington Street, Waynesburg, Pennsylvania; Decker Brothers, Rhinebeck, New York; Winthrop Packard, Canton, Massachusetts. It is not necessary, however, to buy boxes to put up for birds. Equally useful ones can be made in the manual training department of any school or in the basement or woodshed at home. If you do not know how to begin, you should buy one bird box and construct others similar for yourself. Men sometimes make the mistake of thinking it is absolutely necessary that such boxes should conform strictly to certain set dimensions. Remember that the cavities in trees and stumps which birds naturally use show a wide variety in size, shape, and location. A many-roomed, well-painted martin house makes a pleasing appearance in the landscape, but may not be attractive to the martins. As a boy I built up a colony of more than 15 pairs of these birds by the simple device of rudely partitioning a couple of soap boxes. The entrances to the different rooms were neither uniform in size nor in shape, but were such as an untrained boy could cut out with a hatchet. A dozen gourds, each with a large hole in the side, completed the tenements for this well-contented martin community. Some rules for making and erecting bird boxes. Here are a few simple rules on the making and placing of bird boxes. 1. In all nest boxes, except those designed for martins, the opening should be several inches above the floor, thus conforming to the general plan of a woodpecker's hole or natural cavity in a tree. 2. As a rule, nest boxes should be erected on poles from 10 to 30 feet from the ground, or fastened to the sides of trees where limbs do not interfere with the outlook. The main exception is in the case of wrens, whose boxes or gourds can be nailed or wired in fruit trees or to the side of buildings. 3. Martin houses should be erected on poles at least 20 feet high, placed well out in the open, not less than 100 feet from buildings or large trees. 4. All boxes should be taken down after the nesting season and the old nesting material removed. It should be remembered that hole nesting birds are the only kind that will ever use a bird box. One need not expect a meadowlark to leave its nest in the grass for a box on a pole, nor imagine that an oriole will give up the practice of weaving its swinging cradle on an elm limb to go into a box nailed to the side of a tree. Feeding birds. Much can be done to bring birds about the home or the schoolhouse by placing food where they can readily get it. The majority of land birds that pass the winter in Canada or in the colder parts of the United States feed mainly upon seeds. Cracked corn, wheat, rice, sunflower seed, hemp seed, and bird seed, purchased readily in any town, are therefore exceedingly attractive articles of diet. Breadcrumbs are enjoyed by many species. Food should not be thrown out on the snow unless there is a crust on it or the snow has been well trampled down. Usually it should be placed on boards. Various feeding plans have been devised to prevent the food from being covered or washed away by snow or rain. Detailed explanations of these can be found in Bulletin No. 1, Attracting Birds About the Home, issued by the National Association of Audubon Societies. Suet wired to the limb of a tree on the lawn will give comfort and nourishment to many a chickadee, nuthatch, and downy woodpecker. To make a bird sanctuary, nesting sites and food are the first requirements. There appears to be no reason why town and city parks should not be made into places of great attraction for the wild birds. Community sanctuaries. At Meriden, New Hampshire, there is a tract of land containing 32 acres of fields and woods, dedicated to the comfort and happiness of wild birds. It is owned by the Meriden Bird Club, and owes its existence largely to the intelligence and enthusiasm of Ernest H. Baines, bird lover and lecturer, who lives there. The entire community takes an interest in its maintenance, and there birds are fed and nesting places provided. It is in the widest sense a community sanctuary. There are now a number of these cooperative bird havens established and cared for in practically the same way. One is in Cincinnati, another in Ithaca, New York, and still another at Greenwich, Connecticut. Birdcraft Sanctuary. The best equipped of this class of community bird refuges, as distinguished from private estates or Audubon Society, state or federal bird reservations, is Birdcraft Sanctuary in Fairfield, Connecticut, a tract of 10 acres presented to the Connecticut Audubon Society in June, 1914. Mrs. Mabel Osgood Wright, president of the Connecticut Society, has written that in the creation of this sanctuary it was decided that certain requirements were necessary. A cat-proof fence to surround the entire place. That it may not look aggressive, it should be set well inside the picturesque old wall. Stone gate posts and a rustic gate at the entrance on the highway. A bungalow for the caretaker, wherein there shall be a room for the meetings of the Society's executive committee and board. A tool and workshop of corresponding style. Several rustic shelters and many seats. The assembling of the various springs into a pond, so designed as to make an island of a place where the redwings nest. Trails to be cut through the brush, and the turf grass in a charming bit of old orchard on the hilltop to be restored for the benefit of worm-pulling robins. Several stone basins to be constructed for bird baths. Houses to be put up of all sorts, from wren boxes, von Berlepsch model, flicker and owl boxes to a martin hotel, and lastly, the supplementing of the natural growth by planting pines, spruces, and hemlocks for windbreaks, and mountain ashes, mulberries, sweet cherries, flowering shrubs, and vines for berries and hummingbird honey. Not only were all these things done, but there has been built and equipped a small museum of natural history, unique in its good taste and usefulness. Cemeteries as Bird Sanctuaries.